Here is my recap and review for Dexter Season 2, Episode 1, entitled It's Alive. Let's get this review started. So this season picks up about 38 days after the last season ended, and Dokes is still following Dexter. Everywhere Dexter goes, Dokes shows up, and he's been tailing him ever since. And things have not been good for Dexter. He's very much off his game. He can't even bowl. He's on a bowling league, and that's how the season kind of starts. Dokes is kind of watching from a distance, and Dexter can't perform well. He hasn't killed anybody in about 5 weeks, and it's really starting to wear him down. So he finally gets a chance to kill somebody, and it ends up being a guy who kind of can put curses on people, kind of some voodoo stuff at a shop. And the guy's blind. You can see that as soon as Dexter walks in. He can't see in either eye. This guy, Dexter's got him laid out on the table, ready to kill him. And he starts to do some, mumbo jumbo for voodoo stuff. And Dexter's like, yeah, that stuff doesn't mean anything. And he goes to kill him. And he stops, and he's not able to kill the guy. He can't get the knife to go down. And when he finally does get the knife to go down, it kind of moves off to the side. And he ends up letting the guy loose and tells him, this is your chance to get away, get out of here, basically giving him charity. And then it shows Dexter out on his boat where he usually dumps the bodies, and he's very disappointed in himself. And what's interesting is when Dexter is on his boat, you can see on the radar all the bodies that he's dumped there over the years. So we kind of move forward with the episode, and Dokes is still following Dexter. We've got Rita'S husband, Paul, in jail. Ex-husband is still trying to get her to see the side of Dexter that she doesn't see, and she's not willing to commit to that. Finally, at the end of the episode, it's very unfortunate because Paul ends up getting killed in prison when she actually had the chance to help him just a few minutes prior to him being killed. And Dexter kind of tries to tell her, this is his own fault for getting himself into this situation. She kind of looks over at Dexter and says, really? Is it really? Because she kind of has a feeling that Dexter did have something to do with it. So we're going to see if that pans out to anything, in the future. Now, Dexter is very much off his game, like I said in this episode. So beyond those few things, he doesn't feel anything. He's losing all feeling. They end up going to a crime scene, and there's a guy who was brutally murdered, has machete cuts all over his body. And this death is tied to a local gang. Well, that guy's mother actually shows up on the scene begging Dexter to find and kill the guy who's responsible. So Dexter kind of gets this little gleam in his eye. Well, they actually end up picking up the guy who did this because she told him she knows who did it, a guy named Little Chino. Well, Little Chino is then led into the police department, and he's not so little. He's a very large individual. And Dexter gets this big gleam in his eye. He's really looking forward to killing this individual because of all of the crimes that he's committed. He's murdered a lot of people. And so Dexter decides to go and take this individual down. Well, when Dexter goes to take him down, he has a little trouble because of how big the guy is, but he has to use 2 tranquilizers on him instead of just 1. And then he gets him in the room, and Dexter's off his game. Well, before he wakes up, Dexter goes to cut him to get his blood sample to put in his trophy case, and the guy wakes up. But Dexter cuts him really bad, not the way he normally would. And the guy wakes up, and he's able to get loose, and he fights Dexter off, and he runs out of the room. So Dexter is... he's not happy about that. This whole episode is about Dexter being off of his game. It's Alive, the name of the episode, has a lot to do with what happens in this episode because there's a scene earlier where they keep showing flashbacks to his father trying to help him, control his urges. And he's at a shooting range and he accidentally shoots his father. He doesn't mean to do it on purpose. They get into a little scuffle and he shoots his father. He hopes he didn't kill him, and he didn't. He stands up. He must have had a bulletproof vest on. His father says, that was almost it. I almost, was killed, and his heart's beating. And Dexter was really curious as to what's that like. So he puts his hand on his father's chest and he just feels that heart beating. And it amazes him because he doesn't have feelings like that. He's very curious about that and wishes he could feel something like that. So as a child, he's continually looking for ways to get that feeling. Well, he gets up on top of a building, and it looks like he's about to jump off the edge, and his father pulls him off and says, don't ever do that. You know, killing yourself is not the answer to the urges you have. And he's like, Dad, I'm not trying to kill myself. He goes, I just want to feel something. And that was, you know, what happened when he was a child. Well, he's carried that into adulthood. Well, this episode gets interesting because there are some people out on a boat where Dexter dumps his bodies, and there are some people, you know, scuba diving. They find some of his knives that he threw away in, you know, last season at the beginning when he thought he might get caught. They find some of his tools down there, and then they find all the bodies, more than 30 bodies. So the very last scene of this episode is Deborah at home. Well, she's living with Dexter for the time being because she can't be alone after what happened with the ice truck killer. And I'm going to talk about a little bit about her struggles in this episode here in a minute. But the very last scene is Dexter. He shows up at home and she's like, come here, you got to see this. And so he sits down and she goes, they've been talking about this all afternoon. And it's about these 30 bodies that they found out, and that there's another serial killer out there. Dexter feels his chest and his heart is beating. So this is the first time, like in Dexter's life, where he's actually felt something, the thrill of possibly getting caught for all of the people that he has murdered. So let's talk about Deborah for a minute. She's been having a lot of trouble coping with the ice truck killer. She's trying to cope with it. She hasn't been back to work yet prior to this episode, and she finally goes back to work, and LaGuerta's very, very concerned about her, doesn't think it's time for her to come back, that she really should get some sort of counseling. At one point, she's at a bar, and throughout the episode, a lot of people recognize her as the ice truck killer's girlfriend, fiance. And she's at a bar, and some guy's trying to get her attention, and the guy comes up and touches her on the shoulder, and she reaches back and really hits the guy hard. And she's like, she freaks out. She's like, did you see him? He was trying to grab me. He was trying to grab me. So she's not right. You can tell she's not right. And that's kind of where this episode ends. It ends with Dexter finally getting some feeling, and, you know, they found all the bodies he's dumped. So we're going to see what he has to do next to get himself out of this situation. This is another one of those expertly written episodes. And that's what made this show amazing, was the writing. And this first episode is a great way to start a season. So this is going to bring us to another incredible season of Dexter. I'll be reviewing and recapping each episode as I go through it. So this is my review and recap of Season 2, Episode 1, entitled It's Alive. Please hit the like button below, hit the subscribe button, get the notification bell. You will be notified when I have new videos go up, and I appreciate all the support thus far.